Level 5, elementally intuitive movement, elemental implement manipulation, wood wand. So now we have 2 implements, and I've got here our found piece of house material that is a nice straight line, but over here I have a branch that fell from a tree that is curved. And because of its curve, it has a very different feel to it than this branch. Oh, it just broke. Maybe I needed it to be shorter. All right, that's cool. I'll adapt to that. So I've got this curved branch. I'm going to take off that extra stick too. Okay, great. So that does assist in its motion with that extra bit. It wasn't working so well. All right, so we've got our 2 implements, our wood wands. Chosen to work with different forms of wood wand versus similar wood wand for an additional Eustress challenge, because now whichever side is manipulating whichever implement has to adapt to the dynamics of that particular implement, as I am integrating everything that we've learned and been practicing consciously in levels 1 through 4, which are, or excuse me, 0 through 4, levels 0 through 4, our first 5 levels there. And now our 6th level, level 5, we don't have to think about what our bodies are doing. We can just move, because we can trust that our vessels know to breathe, how to place our feet to support our bodies, how much space we need to move freely with these particular implements, because we have been working with these implements enough that we're aware of how much space we need and the dynamics of how they like to move, how they prefer to move. Because as they are our guides, they're guiding us to move through space with them. It's the importance of elementally intuitive movement, moving within our vessels consciously, owning our bodies, inhabiting this thing that we live in, that our navigator consciousness is in, that is affected by conditioning, sociocultural programs, genetics, but that can be commandeered with practice. So elementally intuitive movement is practice, safe practice. It's a kind teacher. It's a kind challenge, because I have one of my favorite phrases is, may your challenges be kind. May our challenges be kind, because challenges help us grow and kind challenges don't hurt. Because I don't think that things need to hurt for us to grow. We just need to challenge ourselves. Hurting is distress. We can learn without distress. We can learn with eustress. It's about the challenge. It's the challenge that helps us to grow, not the distress. And the more that we practice eustress training, and we choose to increase the challenge of what we're working with, change the dynamics of what we're doing, and adapt to these changes, then we are conditioning ourselves to handle whatever life throws at us when it just happens to throw some random chaos, which we've been getting a lot of that lately. So the more we practice adaptation to change and recovery to all of that change, and also recovery from perceived failure, which really a stumble is just an opportunity to learn, and hopefully your stumbles will be kind. May your stumbles be kind. May they not be painful. May they not require much recovery for you to learn the lessons that you need to learn, so that you can get back up on the road of life and continue walking your path and enjoying the ride. And maybe, join me on the cow. Join me on the cow. Now I'm not always on the cow. Sometimes I'm walking the road. Sometimes I forget that I'm walking the road and I try to direct things, and then I'm in front of the cow. Then I get run over. So after I get up, after some moaning and crying, because I do moan and cry, and I'm not necessarily proud of myself, but in the moment when it's happening, I can't control it, and it's just what's happening, and that's okay. It's human. the kindest thing I could do to myself is pick myself up, dust myself off, and continue walking. Now, initially, I may keep my distance from the cow, but eventually, maybe I'll think it's safe to walk beside the cow. And in walking beside the cow, what happens? Oh my. I tried to direct it subtly. And that's not so great either, because the cow becomes aware of that, and boom, there I am off in the ditch again. And the ditch initially is not pleasant. I don't like the ditch. I might complain about the ditch. I have opinions about the ditch. And my opinions about the ditch make me very uncomfortable about the ditch. But then I change my opinions about the ditch. And because I've shifted my opinions about the ditch, suddenly the ditch is not so terrible anymore. The ditch now becomes a much more pleasant place to be, because I've recognized that there are pleasant things to enjoy from the perspective of the ditch, should I choose to look at them. And once I choose to look at them and appreciate them, then suddenly they have value, and now the ditch has value. And because the ditch has value, I like the ditch. But eventually I was like, I've been in the ditch long enough. I'm glad I had that rest. My feet were tired. Now I can get back up, continue walking on the road. So we continue walking on the road, and we're like, wow, I'm not gonna walk in front of that cow. No. I'm not gonna get run over again, and I'm not gonna walk beside it, because I just can't seem to control myself. I just keep trying to control the direction that this cow is going. And chaos is gonna go in the direction that it's gonna go, no matter what I want it to do. So therefore I better accept that. So instead I'm gonna walk behind the cow. So I walk behind the cow, and I noticed that behind the cow, there's a lot of cow patties. Because as the cow goes along, it leaves a lot of poop. So initially, I start avoiding the poop. And that becomes the game. The game becomes avoid the poop. That's not my shit. 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 Or if I decide to play with that shit, I get a really long stick and I poke at it. And maybe I'll play tic-tac-toe or make smiley faces and the shit. Be sure not to fling your sticks if you happen to have poo, because nobody likes getting shit poo flung on them. And whatever, keep going, but mostly avoiding the shit. But if we avoid the shit too much, we end up right behind the cow. And when we end up right behind the cow kicks us. And when the cow kicks us, that hurts. So don't get too close to chaos is the message there, is don't pay attention so that you're not getting too close to the chaos. Don't get too close to the cow. Keep a safe distance. Walking behind the cow, still a great idea, because I think the cow kind of knows the way based on where we are, because chaos takes us to where we be no matter what. Here we are. Chaos is the vehicle that takes us to where we be. It's just what it is. So therefore, I'm going to follow that cow. I'm going to follow that cow. I'm going to follow that cow from a safe distance. Safe distance is going to vary depending on how I'm feeling that day. I might feel more confident some days than others. That's all right. That's how we learn. If I get kicked sometimes, or I get kicked sometimes, that's okay. I'll recover. That's fine. It's an opportunity to practice recovery. But if I start paying attention to all this shit that I was initially saying, oh, that's not my shit. That's not my shit. I don't want to take responsibility for that shit. That's somebody else's shit. I start to recognize that some of this shit is actually quite valuable if I recognize that depending on its maturation, it can be used for fuel. If it's really dried out shit, old dried out shit is good for fuel. Or it can be used for fertilizer. Fresher poo makes for better food growing substances. So we can take our shit and process that shit, and when we process that shit and give it a purpose, it is valuable shit, and as valuable shit, it serves us. I recommend that we use tools like gloves and shovels and buckets and not touch the shit directly, because if you touch it directly, then you get covered in shit. And then when you go to other people and say, hey, you want to help me with this shit? They're like, no, stay away from me, you stink. I don't like shit. Get back. So approach with tools. You know, approach with tools. Maybe instead of approaching with shit, approach with fruit. Approach with the fruits of your labors. Approach with what comes from the shit. And say, look, check this out. I grew this and I cooked this with these fires. And now I have this food and I'm going to share this food with you. And if you really enjoy any of it, I will give you the seeds. You can keep the seeds in this food that you're eating. And you can, I'll give you the recipe and I'll show you how I prepared that dish. And if you want to improvise on it and change on it and do it your own way, feel free. But I'm glad to have inspired you with this meal. And then you take the seeds of that fruit and plant the seeds, and then they start looking around for their own and realize, oh, this is some good shit. That's good fuel and that's good fertilizer, and I'm going to take that shit and I'm going to take that shit and I'm going to say, you know what, that's my shit. And in the process of bending down to pick it up, we get all the exercise that we need. And in the process of growing the food to share and cooking it, we get all the exercise that we need. And in the process of celebrating and enjoying and dancing and singing all that we have to share, we get all the exercise that we need. And that supports us doing all the things that we do. Because if we look around the world at all the different cultures and all the places and places that have a lot of challenges, and I mean a lot of challenges because of how limited their resources are, they adapt. And part of what helps them adapt is culture. It's singing, dancing, music, art, sharing stories, sharing laughter. Those are the ways that our bodies recover. So let's learn from our brotherships and sisterships all over the planet that have been having to cope with a much more challenging existence than we have been for way longer than we have, because we've had it fairly comfortably here, and I don't think we realize or recognize how much foundational privilege we have just by like having water and shelter and resources, flushing toilets. I mean, just little things, the ability to go to school and learn things, and really, like, in some ways they have things that we don't. Because they don't have school, they get to learn to live life. They get to learn to function within the environments that they're living in instead of being inculcated into a system that is unsustainable. And that's why they're still around. Think about it. All right, so next week we start with 2 new implements. Yay, 2 new implements. I'm so excited, and we'll go through all the levels again, and we're going to focus on a different foundation. And we're going to start with the feet, because the mechanics of where we place our feet is very important. It affects how we use our joints, and how we use our joints affects how our muscles supports that motion. And if we train our muscles to support our joints well by moving through the planes of movement that our joints are designed mechanically to move through based on the structure of the joint, of the bones, of all the system there, then we better support mobility in our system, and we better support a system that can handle the pressure of gravity and aging and wear and tear of repetitive motion, life, whatever, the things that we do as we age. So that way we can age more comfortably, because when we age more comfortably, we're more likely to have more bandwidth to help support the greater sphere. And that's what it's all about. Support, babies. Support, kindness, appreciation. Kindness and appreciation. Caca! Yeah, have a great always. Thank you. Caca. Yeah. Cacao, 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 cacao.